Hi, and welcome to this video series on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. In this video series we're going to be talking about the sutras, all the sutras from chapter 1 of this famous ancient yogic scripture. My name is Swami Mantrikadeva Giri. I'm a yoga master in the Raja Yoga tradition, and I'll be talking you through these sutras. We're going to do a few sutras per video. You'll see how it goes. Atha Yogānuśāsanam. Atha Yogānuśāsanam. And then there is an instruction on yoga. The first sutra. It's very easy. It's opening the book by saying what it is about. In ancient times, the scriptures were not in the book forms that we know currently, with a cover and a back with some information. So starting logically by saying what it is about is what they were doing. There's not much to say about this sutra further on. It's just yoga is what it is about. Sutra number 2. Yogaś, citta, vṛtti, nirodhaḥ. Yogaś, citta, vṛtti, nirodhaḥ. I've translated this as yoga is control over the movements of the mind. What is this? We're going to be handling this one by one. Yogaś, yoga is citta. Citta is the higher mind, or more literally, what is the higher mind? What is the highest point of the mind in yogic philosophy? Well, that is the point that in yoga philosophy is called citta. Sometimes, because it's about the highest point, it's confused with consciousness. Some say it is the mind, all of the mind. The way I was taught this, and the way that I found most helpful, is to say that citta is the highest point of the mind, but therefore also the most harmonic part of the mind. And the most harmonic part of the mind is memory. Why is memory the most harmonic part of the mind? Because only when there's harmony, something can stay the same, yet still function. So, if the memory was something that was passive, then all of our memories would be dormant. Because passivity means it could not move. It would not be able to function and be called up so easily when there's a resonance. When there's a resonance in our life between one thing and a memory, there has to be a clear and opened and active channel. But if it was only activity, If the memory was an active thing, then we would lose the memories all the time, the individual memories, because they would be dispersed. Because activity, if it doesn't have a balance of passivity, then it can't stay in the form where it is, and it will change, because active energy is diffusing and passive energy is contracting. So active and expanding, passive and contracting together in perfect relation to each other brings harmony. Citta, the memory, is the highest point, therefore the most harmonic point, therefore, of our mind. Because it's balanced, there's movements there. One moment you are better at remembering this part, recalling that part. All the time there are some tiny changes in what you remember, what you recall. Some parts are temporarily forgotten or sleeping. Some are activated because they were just at a point of relevance. Some things are really forgotten. New memories come in. These are the movements of the mind. This is the word vṛtti. Vṛtti are the energy currents, the tiny moving specks of knowledge, tiny dots, tiny waves interacting together when energy activates a part of citta. In citta there are tiny specks, tiny impressions that were left on our consciousness that are our memories, and these are concrete and abstract memories. They are called samskara. Samskara in yoga. Samskara. Samskaras are the specks, the impressions that together form your karma. Karma is a structure of interconnected samskaras that, due to which samskaras are connected, has its own character. So each piece of karma has its own character because of the impressions made on our consciousness at some point in the past. Because of these, together a character is formed, and this is our karma. Our karma is the connection of all the impressions made on us. And a piece of karma is a group of samskaras. So Yogaś, citta, vṛtti. So the yoga is, and then the whirlings of energy, the changes in energy, the movements of energy within citta, the mind, the memory. And then yogaś, citta, vṛtti, nirodhaḥ. Nirodhaḥ is the ceasing or the controlling or the restraint. So you gain influence over the movements that are happening inside the memory. The movements that are happening inside the memory are controlled. And how can you show this control to yourself? By letting them cease. So, yoga has to do with the ceasing of remembering. And what is this now in practice? What is this in reality? Because we can talk about this, and this may sound abstract and vague, and perhaps it gives some insights for you, but what is this practically? Okay, so according to Patanjali, yoga only happens when there is full control over the mind up to its most high point, which is the memory. And this is what happens when we meditate, and we meditate so strongly that apart from this one wave of energy that is the thought that we're concentrating on, our object of attention within the meditation, everything else ceases. So there's only the object of attention, and there is no other thought, association, feeling, etc. able to catch your attention. So they are not there anymore, at least seemingly to your consciousness. To your consciousness, they are absolutely gone. You are completely unconscious of them. But this is not only to your consciousness, because when this happens, you, at least in the beginning, later on, when you're a very developed meditator, it can go differently. But in the beginning, any movement within the body, for instance, will trigger movements in the mind, going up to the highest point and freeing memory, freeing thought, and making it move. So in the beginning, we are so we need to become so still within our meditation that there's absolutely nothing anymore. That is one way to do it, at least. I know there are people who say otherwise, and they're not entirely wrong. But it's very helpful if you meditate, you learn to meditate in a way that you can let everything cease except for this one thought that is your object of attention. Also, because Yogaś citta nirodhaḥ, the control over the movements of the mind, is very difficult to bring about when you're still so sensitive to bodily experiences, bodily movements. Later on, if you've strengthened your grip over the mind, and the mind is much more strong than the body, then you can go into this state of Yogaś citta nirodhaḥ, becoming one with the object of your attention, because of all the ceasing of all the movements of the mind. I'm repeating it again and again just to make it clear. This is Yoga's citta nirodhaḥ happens then when your mind is so strong at any point. In the beginning, it can happen to your surprise, but later on you can gain control over this, and you don't need to sit and close your eyes on a pillow and remove every single other thought. Because then you're just able to repress, but not in a negative sense, to restrain, control, to temporarily move to the side all the other impressions, because your power of concentration has become very big. Okay, so according to Patanjali, this is the most essential part of what is yoga. So yoga is the ceasing of all the whirlings of the mind up to the level of memory, or in my preferred words from the translation, yoga is control over the movements of the mind. Dot. Period. Okay, so now we know how this sage thinks about yoga. But why does he say so? Sutra number 3. Tadā draṣṭuḥ svarūpe'vasthānam. Tadā draṣṭuḥ svarūpe'vasthānam. Then the seer is settled into his true form. Now we've touched on this already a little bit in the previous sutra. But this is phrasing it a little bit more clear. When all the conditions of the previous sutra have been met, then the seer is settled into his true form, svarūpa. Svarūpa is the form of the self, the true form, your higher self, your true nature, your real you. But it's also realizing that you are the higher self. You are the self with a capital S. The self that is one with God, one with the universe, etc. So when the mind has stopped and is quiet, and then you can become one with the object of your attention. And that is what yoga means. Yoga means union. Union with the object of your attention. When the yogi, by stopping his thought, by stopping all thoughts except for the object of his or her attention, then the seer is settled into his true form. When you are one with the object of your attention, this can only happen because the self is all-pervasive. The self is everywhere. The self is all that is. That's also why it is said that the self is one with God, one with the universe. The self is the level on which we are not an individual anymore, but where we are an individualized part of infinity, but a part of infinity that is also infinite in itself. So, this is the true form of who we are. Yoga is a means to return to this true form. This is essentially what the 3 first sutras of chapter 1 of the Yoga Sutras are saying. So now we have discussed the first few points, which are very close to the essence. Well, they are the essence of what needs to be written. You can see a line from Sutra 1 where Patanjali introduces the subject of yoga by saying this is going to be about yoga. Then he says yoga is when everything has, when all the movements have settled, and then because of the settling of the movements, the person who is performing the act is settled into his, her, their true form. This is very, you can see that he talks about what it is first, and then the second most essential thing, and then the third most essential thing. He moves from the essence to knowing everything about its form. And we will continue to see this movement throughout all the chapters, where he starts with the essence and then move into all the different forms that it, all the parts of our form, all the forms existing within ourselves that are going to be affected by anything that is happening in this essence. So from essence to form, essence to form, essence to form, essence to form. We will be seeing this all the time. This is not necessarily the way we've come to learn how to write in our Western culture, because we start often with some introduction of the essence in a title and perhaps the lines below, but we don't go to the absolute core first and explain from this. This has much more power than the way we're doing it, and also the brevity that Patanjali uses, those clear statement-like lines that are as precise and short as he could manage. This is deemed too forceful usually in Western cultures, and this may take some some getting used to, but I'm sure you'll get there if you follow these videos, read books, study yogic techniques, and read back every now and then to read what's next, to read about the things that have just passed, to read about, reflectingly read about the things you've seen and experienced in the past few days, weeks, months, whatever, and bring these new experiences that you had since the last time you read the sutras, bring them into the scope when you read them again. So you read a sutra, you go do something else for a few hours, days, weeks, months, and then, having had new experiences and having read the sutra for the first time, you return to it at a later time. And you do it at your own pace, you do it improvisingly, intuitively, you do it in a way that suits you, that you feel comfortable with. Because you are the one who dictates how, when, what, how often. And then, only then, if you don't follow too much the teacher, I'm saying this as a teacher, don't follow me too much, use me as an inspiration, but follow your own heart at every moment. Use my interpretations, my explanations in the way that suits you, to come to an understanding, to come to insight. Move along, and in the end, if you care much about Yoga Sutras, move to a point where you will make your own translations based on your own experiences in relation to the original Sanskrit text. If you don't care about it that much, it's also fine. Do it only if it appeals to you. But if it really appeals to you, go to great lengths. And if it doesn't, go as far as it appeals to you. Use it the way it helps you, and if it doesn't, if it gets in the way, move it aside, forget about it, at least for a while, or forever, whatever. You return if you like, you don't if you don't. That is an exceptionally important rule in any mystical spiritual work. Try it. Listen well to yourself and seek out teachers who can challenge what you already think, what you already feel, what you think you already know, what you believe you already are, and then use these challenges of a teacher to then check, but what is my reality? What is my story? What is my belief? What is my insight? What is my understanding of this part of the truth that this and this sutras are pointing towards? A sutra isn't truth. A sutra is pointing towards truth. A teacher isn't truth. Even if he embodies truth, he isn't truth. He points to truth, and truth may move through him. But he is just as much truth as you are. Perhaps the truth flows more easily through the teacher than through you at this moment. And then this can be a source of inspiration, of learning. But in the end, you are as important as any teacher. You are as important as any book, as any writing. In the end, it doesn't matter what is written about spirituality. In the end, it only matters what you can directly perceive, what you can by yourself completely realize with every fiber of your being. Only if you get to this point, not a point where you know in your mind the way it works, but where you know with your whole being the way it works, then only can you truly come to realization. Because that is what realization is. Realization is not a mental thing. Yeah, mental realization, you could say. But a full realization as the realizations of the spiritual masters. Those legendary figures that we've heard about in so many books and traditions. Those very real insights and deep knowledge. This cannot come through touching upon a subject once for a moment. Well, if you're very lucky, it can. But in the end, only if it brings to you not a mere mental realization, but a full body, every fiber, beyond the fibers of your body, experience of what is meant. That is spiritual insight. Alright, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have a very nice